Alright, guys. So, I've been watching a lot of World of Warcraft content recently because of, the new Midnight expansion coming out, etc. Just kind of trying to really, see what the general sentiment is on the internet, especially from, all the World of Warcraft community creators that there are. And speaking of creators, there's been, a pretty big ebb and flow up and down of, people stopping making World of Warcraft content, some of the OGs, changing what kind of content they do make, and then some staying pretty consistent throughout the years in terms of making the content and videos for people, etc. But it's been kind of a mixed bag. And the whole reason why I'm doing this video is because I'm trying to kind of make sense of, what the sort of general sentiment is about the game right now and the new expansion and how people feel. And obviously, I've got my information from talking to people in game, but also watching the videos that other creators have made and trying to see what their perspectives are and their communities are, etc. But here's where I've kind of landed, and that's why I've titled the video what I did. Have World of Warcraft players, has the community kind of lost the point of what World of Warcraft is? And that may sound like a strange thing to say, especially because I don't really consider myself to be a World of Warcraft player anymore. I used to be. This was, my original MMO that I got really heavily into, and it's been one of, if not my favorite, fantasy world experience that I've ever come across, especially in terms of a video game. There's lots of books and movies like Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones and Wheel of Time and lots of other fantasy series out there that exist that are, worlds to engross yourself in. But World of Warcraft and Warcraft being something you can actually play right on your computer, it's been at the top of the list there for me for the longest time. But I really feel like people have kind of lost the point of what being in an MMO and playing an MMO is. And I don't really know if that's because of the game itself and the gameplay of World of Warcraft changing so much over the course of 15 years or however long the game's been out now. I always forget exactly what year it came out. Um, a long time is the point, right? And it's changed a lot over that time. And what I will say for absolute certain, because I was there, I'm older than I look, guys. All right, I know I was blessed, but um, I was there when World of Warcraft first came out, and I experienced World of Warcraft throughout its various expansions. Um, I didn't play every single expansion all the way through. For the most part, some of them I did, but most of them I didn't. But I've definitely experienced the game throughout all of its versions and all of its iterations. Um, and I definitely feel, for me personally, that the sort of general player base has changed and has shifted. Um, why exactly that is, I don't think that we can really pinpoint exactly why, but I'm getting off topic a little bit here, but I really feel like the public player base, the player base that you see online because they are the most vocal, on the social media, you know, websites, or they make videos, like they're the content creators. I really feel like those people, it's going to be controversial, guys. So I expect to get flamed in the comments and the dislike ratio being relatively fucked on this video. But uh, I think that the most vocal players are potentially either the problem with the game or also not the majority of the players, at least not the same that they used to be, right? World of Warcraft is supposed to be, in my opinion, as a veteran player, right, or an OG player, a social world building experience, right? That's what MMOs are. You play, God of War or Elden Ring for a hardcore boss killing, experience, right? You play uh, games like I'm gonna actually equate World of Warcraft to a game like GTA. You play games like that to have other players do fun stuff with you, funny stuff, interesting stuff, to even like to role play, to just experience a world with other people. That's what an MMO is really, right? And I feel like that's what it was. That's how it felt in the beginning, and then throughout, for various reasons, throughout the changes that have happened to the game over time, it stopped being that. It became more of like a encounter simulator game, for especially in terms, if you like only look at content creators and the vocal minority, in my opinion, minority of the game. Those people are like, the raiders, the Mythic Plus dungeoners. That's really it. Maybe like the hardcore PvPers, but even like the PvPers, I think those were always there. The PvPers were kind of always there. Um, and so I have less of a problem with them, but I really feel like the sentiment on the internet has basically destroyed World of Warcraft and taken it away from what it was and what I feel like it was supposed to be, and turned it into something else that it's not. And Blizzard kind of lost their direction as well along the way. But I feel like it's the content creators and the vocal community that has really done the most harm to the game. So, roast me in the comments. Fine, I can take it. But what is World of Warcraft supposed to be, and what is an MMO supposed to be, guys? I think we have to kind of ask ourselves, what's the point? What do we want? And be honest about what's best for the game. And controversial point number 2 for this rant here, okay, guys? I believe that the changes that Blizzard is making in Midnight is the first time that I've seen in a long time that they've actually harkened back to the old feeling of the game, and potentially are bringing back some of the life that the game used to have. And you think this is total copium, right? I can already tell. The comments are going to be like, oh, bullshit, whatever, you think that. But no, I'm serious. I really, truly believe that the simplification of classes, the addition of more like open world, farmable content, like the, housing items and things like that, the endeavors for the neighborhoods, the prey, the labyrinths, and things along that nature. Those are the kinds of things that harken back to bringing World of Warcraft into a more old-fashioned or original style of game. Those things didn't exist in the game before, but the reason why those things didn't need to exist before was because people treated World of Warcraft differently 10 years ago than they do now. Now, you basically log in, you get your gear, and you queue up for a dungeon or a raid with your group or as a pug or whatever, and you just try to complete the hardest content you can, and then you either do it or you don't and you get frustrated or whatever, and then you log off. I feel like that's a large portion of like the vocal majority players and how they play the game. Correct me if I'm wrong, please, but that's what my experience has been talking to people who have maintained a World of Warcraft subscription over the course of time, right? Those are the kind of activities that they do for the most part. But then there are the players like me who used to play the game, who still come back to the game now and then, and who want the game to be their home, but it just doesn't feel like it because there's not a whole lot to do outside of raid logging and Mythic Plus progression, right? But those people still do exist. There's some people who like just degenerately stick to World of Warcraft because I don't know, because they don't think they can go anywhere else, or they've tried other games and they just feel more connected to the characters in WoW or the story of WoW or whatever it is, right? But there's a pretty significant chunk of players who want this to be their place, their home, their world, whether it's to roleplay or just to have a character and experience fun gameplay, right? And craft things and get gear, but not at like a super high level. And for those players, housing and these other features that I mentioned before are exactly what they need to have fun playing the game again. And I think everyone else needs to stop being negative about, and I'm not like crying, like, oh, stop hating on WoW. I'm a WoW hater. I hate WoW. WoW sucks, right? No, but in all seriousness, like, I don't play WoW a lot because I don't like what it's become. I play other MMOs majority of the time, right? But I'm coming back to Midnight because I see, and I'm being honest with the changes, and and being able to accept the fact that they actually are good for casual players, right? Which we have to be honest is the majority of the player base of any game. Of any game, whether it's, BDO, ESO, Guild Wars 2, Lost Ark, whatever MMO you want to pick, there's more casual players than any other type of player in any MMO because of the nature of what an MMO is. An MMO is a social experience. That's what it is. At the end of the day, the majority of people who play MMOs are fantasy enjoyers who want to play games with and around other people, not necessarily constantly interacting with them, but seeing other people in a fantasy world as a character that they identify with. Right? That's what we all want. That's what and people who say they don't want that, they maybe that's true, but even I feel like even people who say that's not what they want and they just want like to raid, right, or do dungeons or whatever, there's still a piece of them that identifies with their character and now their house, because we have housing and things like that, right? And I just want there to be more of a conversation in the community about like the positive aspects of basically casual gaming, and kind of bringing that back to the forefront of what World of Warcraft is and what it can be, because World of Warcraft still maintains one of the best world building experiences and character building experiences in any game universe that you can put yourself into, right? There are definitely other ones, but World of Warcraft is bigger. It's probably the biggest, right? There's arguments about like what actually has the most players and things like that on, various sites and forums and stuff like that. But, alongside like Final Fantasy, World of Warcraft is, a massive world and player base that I feel like it's sad that that's not the focus of the game. There's so much to World of Warcraft, like the old zones and the world building that exists within the game that is like not focused on. And this is partially Blizzard's fault. It's not players' fault necessarily, but Blizzard's fault too, that it's not being taken advantage of. Like they're not building off of the foundation of their world like I feel like they could. And we have to allow Midnight to we have to give what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say we should give Blizzard feedback as a community that these features that are coming up in Midnight are what we want to see. And if you're like a casual player, I want to hear more of that like casual silent majority come through, whether it's in forums or comments on videos. I don't care about my videos. I don't make YouTube content for money, guys, right? I just make it because I'm passionate about stuff. So finding a way for us to kind of like vocalize more that we like this kind of thing is what's going to save World of Warcraft. It's not, better boss design necessarily. It's, telling Blizzard that we like these kinds of features, and as content creators, being honest about what's good and bad for the game and having that conversation. At the beginning of every expansion, there's always this like explosion of like tier list content, right? What's better? What's best? What's bad? What did Blizzard do wrong? What did Blizzard do right? From a class design specific thing, like everyone's so obsessed with, the classes themselves, and I think that really is the wrong focus of what makes the game good. Because the classes change all the time, right? I made a video a little while ago about like how to correctly choose your class, like but what I'm really trying to say is, tier lists are, again, I'm not trying to throw shade at content creators, but that's one of the reasons why I don't make tier lists. Is I just personally find tier lists to just be crap. Like it's just slop content that kind of tricks people into watching videos. Really, at the end of the day, in my opinion, there can be good to. I'm not saying tier lists are like useless when they make sense, but I just don't like when tier lists become what's important to people. Like, is my class doing 5% more damage than this other class right now, and that's the class to pick, and everyone picks that? Like, that's not even the right way to think about the game. Regardless, you should enjoy the game and the characters because of the way that the classes feel for you, and the way that the theme of the class is, because the class is going to play differently from not only expansion to expansion, but from like month to month as Blizzard does changes to things, right? So that's it. And rant over. I just really wanted to touch on this because I've been seeing a lot of sentiment in the community, mostly through like videos of that creators have made talking about like the focus of the game and things that are bad about World of Warcraft, which I actually agree with. I just don't like the fact that that's what's being talked about, right? Because again, like I said before, this last time I'll say it, then we'll end the video here, is that's just simply not the correct focus for us to be talking about as people who like the world of Warcraft, right? It shouldn't be about that. It should be about what can we do and what can we admit that we want to be able to do in the game that actually is like going to cause that player retention to exist. And it's stuff like open world events. It's stuff like more things to farm, more things to do in old zones, which the Endeavors are hearkening to. I've actually enjoyed that with my group of friends, my guildies. We've been doing some of that stuff, and it's pretty cool. So more of that, right? And just telling Blizzard that that is what we want, right? And if you're like I said, the non-vocal majority, those casual players who maybe don't even realize that's what you like, I'm telling you that those things will give us players reason to play the game and justify that sub that feels expensive when it feels like there's nothing to do, or you don't care about the raid, or you don't care. Why are you logging in, right? And what I'll say as well to kind of cap off the video is, if you don't like what there is to do in this game, do yourself a favor, don't play it. That's what I did. All right, I've quit so many times, and like genuinely quit. Not like, oh, I'm quitting and then I play every week still. No, like actually quit. Like just take a whole year off of the game, right? Because it's just not fun. Play a different game. Play single player games. Play other MMOs. Things like that, right? But at the same time, when your favorite game, World of Warcraft, gives you a reason to try something new, give it a genuine try and really think about what's important and why we play MMOs in the first place. All right, so a bit of a rant there, guys, but I hope I made some sense. Hopefully, so you guys can see where I'm coming from, and maybe I got to some of you guys on this one. But other than that, peace. Have a great day. Bye-bye.